What's good, y'all? I hope y'all doing good. Um, Today, right, I had heard an employee say something negative about me. And it was a customer, he needed help finding something, right? And it wasn't nothing like too crazy, just, you know, but he wanted to know where something was, but I didn't know where it was. But he could have asked anyone else and still got help. But I told him like, I didn't know where it was and stuff like that, and he understood and he was okay. And he ended up asking someone else, and then they ended up showing him. But it was a female coworker, and she was like talking about me to another coworker, saying, "How you in this position and you don't know where ish is?" And she cursed and with the S word, and I heard it. I was walking past and I heard it, and it was loud, and I had heard it, and I thought like, I didn't even give it no thought for real. I just heard it and I kept walking. But then I thought about something where it was just like, I'm at a point now where people opinion on me just don't matter. you know? Their hurtful words just don't get to me. Why? Because that's your perception. You feel how you want to feel. And sometimes the negative things they say about you are really how they feel about themselves. Because if you was an understanding person, you would understand that I'm new to this job and that I'm still learning. No matter how long I've been working here. Especially if you're working at a place where it's constantly, adjustments or changes happening, you're always going to be learning. And the customer is fine with me not knowing because it wasn't that deep. And but when I heard this, it was just like, wow. And she looked like she was about like mid 30s, going on 40. But it showed me that my reaction holds the power. You know, I don't give people the time and energy, to even allow their negative thoughts and opinions to hop in my mind. I don't give that stuff no energy or power. I will hear something negative about me and keep it moving. Why? Because it doesn't matter. You know, I'm not listening to nothing that isn't going to help me go forward in my life. Why am I caring about someone else's opinion who is just negative? If I dwell on what they said, will it help me achieve something? Will it motivate me to go harder? You know what I'm saying? So why give it power? And I just want to let y'all know, like, people gonna always have something negative to say about you. When you're doing something new, when you're trying something different, you're going to mess up. But as long as you're trying, as long as you're trying to do better, that's all that matters. Don't care about what people gotta say about you. It don't matter. Your perception of yourself is what truly matters. Why? Because when times get hard, when days feel like it's slow, when nights feel like it's long, it's up to you to keep going. It's not up to them. All they have is an opinion, you know? And I was just thinking like, wow, my reaction holds power. I don't have to feed into that negativity. I don't have to feed into what I just heard. I don't even have to dwell on it. And I heard it, but I didn't dwell on it. Why? Because I know the way she's talking is coming from an inner place. She may not like where she's at, so she got enough time to see where I may mess up and speak on it. But me, on the other hand, I'm working towards stuff. I have 2 jobs, and I also post content for you guys. I'm also building a brand. So I really don't have time to dwell on negative things. I don't have time to speak negative opinions about other people to other people. You get what I'm saying? I don't have the time to gossip about other people. I don't have the time to sit up on the phone all night with female, and I just don't have the time for certain things. And that's where I'm at in my life. I'm maturing, I'm growing, and I'm starting to love myself better. I'm starting to learn how to, speak better to the man in the mirror. Because just like I told you, at the end of the day, all you got is you, and you gotta encourage yourself. And sometimes your confidence, it intimidate people. your confidence intimidate people sometimes because they may feel like, who do you think he is? But no, I'm actually starting to love myself. I'm actually seeing progress in my life. I see where I used to be compared to where I am now. And I'm doing way better mentally. I'm doing way better financially, and I don't have to brag about it, and I'm learning to do things quietly, to grow quietly. There's no need to brag. There's no need to talk about what I got in the makings. I'm going to keep grinding. I'm going to keep working until everything fall in place. And, I'm maturing and I'm networking. I also talked to a guy today. He taught me, an Asian guy. I got his number, but it's probably like the third time I seen him, and he talked to me about stocks. He showed me 100,000 in stocks, and then he also showed me 10,000 in stocks as well that he had. And he was just teaching me about investing. He used God as an example. It was a Bible verse about when God gave, one person one gift and the other person more than one gift, and then he gave the other person more than two gifts. But overall, it came down to them using what they had, trusting that they can get more from what they only had, investing or doubling what they already had. And, he was just talking to me about investing and making the right decisions with my money, and why the wealthy stay wealthy and the poor stay poor. And, what I want to talk to y'all about is you can either listen to the guy who want to see you grow, talking about investments, or you can listen to the girl who care about your mistakes and dwell on the negative things that you may mess up on or do. You're gonna have those two type of people in your life. Those who talk about the good and see your potential, and then those who dwell on your faults and your mistakes. Because who am I? I'm not perfect. I'm young. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to grow. And mistakes is going to happen because why? I'm willing to grow. If I'm not making no mistakes, I'm not growing. And I told y'all this. You don't grow when you don't make mistakes. Why? Because you're so intentional about what you do. You got to mess up because you're not sure all the time. But you learn from your mistakes. You pivot better. And, I didn't give her thought, no mind. It literally went in one ear and out the other. And all I could think about was how she don't like working there, because I paid attention to her face before. She don't never look happy. She said something negative to me before, but I just can't remember. But when you come across negative people, they're negative. Why? Because it says it all in their face. They don't seem approachable, and they keep their conversations limited unless it's what they want to talk about. But 9 times out of 10, it's something negative. And I'm grateful, bro. I'm grateful to be here. I'm 22, and she may not know what I'm going through, She may not know that I struggle with mental health. She may not know that I struggle with suicidal thoughts. She may not know that I struggle with self-love and reassurance, But, people like her, you just gotta forgive and keep going, You just gotta try to understand why they feel the way they feel. But sometimes they're just not really happy with their own life. People like that just aren't happy with themselves. So they have to talk about others so they can feel better about themselves. Because when they notice things about themselves and they dwell on it, it crushes them. Because they're not where they want to be, because they so focused on where others are. They so focused on what you're not doing, which is not good. And that's why I tell y'all, stay focused on you. Show more love to yourself. Speak more highly of yourself. Speak kind to yourself. Because at the end of the day, all you got is you. And when it comes down, bro, you got to be the one to keep pushing. Nobody is motivating me to keep doing these videos every day, There is some people on this channel who really does motivate me just by their comments, They check on me. They support me. But overall, when they're not, there all the time, I'm the one that got to motivate myself. I'm the one that got to keep pushing. And I say that to say, you gotta be your biggest supporter. You gotta be your biggest relier, you know? Trust God, but you also have to motivate yourself to keep going. And, that's really all I have for y'all. And I just want to be honest with y'all and let y'all know how my days are going. This will help me build consistency with posting on here. But, I keep it real with y'all, I let y'all know how my days are going. I let y'all know when I'm sad, when I'm doing good. And, it be on and off. But overall, I just want to say, your perception of yourself is what really matters. Don't care what nobody else got to say. Don't care what nobody else got to think. Because when you die alone. I love y'all.